Hey, everyone's rolling in. Ooh, okay. Hi, everyone. I see that we're still admitting people and they're coming in, but while that's happening, this topic is about hydration. So as they're coming in, if you don't have a bottle of water or a glass of water nearby, take a quick second or two to go grab either a bottle of water or refill your reusable water bottle because we're going to use it. So I'll give you a couple seconds to do that. Or if you have laptop or iPad, you can take me to your kitchen while you get all of those supplies ready. But that's all we'll need for today. So while you're grabbing that, I'll just do a quick intro here. So my name is Ryan, and I'll be your speaker for today. I'm a registered dietitian and the clinical liaison at FoodSmart, where we're committed to connecting people to nutrition support, including a personalized dietitian and daily tools to make eating well simple, which is exactly what we're going to be doing today with hydration. So, hydration is something that we all know we probably should be doing. And generally, we have an idea or a sense of how important it is. But sometimes I find that maybe we don't know exactly how important hydration is or a basic understanding of what water's role is in some of our major processes besides that it keeps us hydrated. So, today we're going to dig into all of that in addition to learning how to assess your hydration, signs to look out for to indicate dehydration, and ways that we can work in more water. So, where does this water bottle or cup of water come in? When talking about hydration, I like to play a game, and it's called Drink Every Time You See a Cup of Water on the Slide. So, throughout this presentation, there'll be a little cup of water. And when you see that, that means drink water. We're talking about hydration. So, today you're going to leave very hydrated, not overhydrated, because that poses a problem. So, we'll talk about what that looks like later. And I do want to say, too, if you have any food restrictions, don't partake. And then drink small sips, not big gulps. And if you have a water bottle, limit yourself to one bottle. So if you get to the end of your bottle, don't refill it for this presentation because that can lead to overhydration. So, with all of that, let's jump into what the agenda is for today. So, on the agenda, we're going to start with a brief overview of what is water, and we'll cover the role of water in our bodies. How much water do you need? How to monitor hydration, ways to get more water, and also a Q&A at the end. So if you have questions, don't feel like you have to hold them till the end. Put them in the chat box, and we'll be able to collect those. And at the end, I'll go through and answer some of those. So, what exactly is water? Before we get into that, here's our first water cup. So this is what they're going to look like on the slides. So when you see that, I've got my water, so I'll participate with you. That means let's take a drink of water. So, what is water? Water is a chemical compound. It's made up of two elements, one oxygen and two hydrogen atoms. So you get the formulation H2O. And if you know this movie poster, you know that it's very niche. And I feel like I'm having a mandala because when I looked it up, it's a series on, I think it was on Max. But when I was younger, I remember this being a movie. So I thought this was perfect for this presentation because H2O is water. This is from 2006. If you haven't seen it, I just rewatched it to make sure that it was appropriate to add to this presentation. And it's great, very nostalgic. So, onto the physical properties of water. It is colorless, it's tasteless, and it's odorless in its purest form. It exists in three states: solid, which is ice, liquid, which is water, and gas, which is steam or vapor. Its importance in nature is it's everywhere. About 71% of the Earth's surface is covered by water, and it's essential for all known life forms. So, where do we find water in our bodies? And you'll see this slide also has a cup, which means drink. So, we are made of water. And you can see in this image, when we're born and during childhood, we're around 70 to 80% water. And as we age, that amount decreases. In adolescence and adulthood, we're around 55 to 60% water. And then in older adulthood, we may be only around 50%. We can see the evidence of how much water we have in our skin most clearly. So if you think of a baby skin compared to the skin of an adult, they look much different. And you also might notice that kids are really bouncy in the sense that they can jump around and fall and not seem to get hurt as easily as adults. And some of that has to do with the water consumption or the water amount that they have providing a cushion. kind of cool for them, not cool for older adults because we don't have as much water to keep us cushioned, but that's why hydration is so important. So now we're going to get even more specific and talk about the role of water in our bodies and why we're made up of so much water and what the critical functions are in things like digestion, metabolism, and detoxification. So, first, we'll look at the overall impacts of our total health. So, when we think of water, sometimes we only think of it having physical consequences to our health, but water plays a large role in things like our mental health and how well we're able to function day to day. And on the slide, you'll see listed a couple different physical benefits, and we'll get more in depth of those shortly. But in short, water helps absorb nutrients from what we eat. It maintains blood pressure, it keeps our metabolism healthy, and so many more functions. On the mental health side, our brain is reliant on water. Brain is majority water, so staying hydrated helps with cognitive function and concentration. It also reduces the risks of headaches and migraines and may also help improve mood or reduce fatigue, which are all things that we hope for. So, hydration can really help. On the performance side, if you're interested in athletics or if you run marathons or do any type of high performance activity, it can help with endurance, preventing fatigue again. And it has a big role in electrolyte balance, which helps with muscle cramps. So if you've ever been running and gotten a cramp, that feels horrible. Proper hydration and electrolyte balance can really help prevent those. So, with water's role in metabolism, it helps our muscles utilize the energy that we have in our body. So, you can see just from this slide alone that water has a really important role in so many key elements that we require every single day. So, on the next couple slides, we're going to dig into some key areas related to nutrition, and it's going to be a step like a tier. So, first is how we digest our food. And then the second is once we digest our food, how we use that broken down food or metabolize it for energy. And then water's role in detoxing or removing waste from our bodies. So, this slide also has a cup. So, we'll take a drink and move on to digestion. So, step one, digestion. This is a really hot topic as of late, especially on social media. If you're on Gut Talk or I don't know if they call it Gutstagram, whatever it is. This is really, really fun, hot topic is just digestion and overall gut health. And water has a big role in good digestion. So, water's role in digestion starts as soon as we put food in our mouths. Water is a component of saliva, which has enzymes like amylase that's going to help break down foods specifically carbs, as we chew it. So digestion starts in our mouth as soon as we start chewing the food. Sometimes it also is when we smell it and it creates when we have saliva and when we smell something really good, that also is like the beginning of a digestion process. So sometimes it is before we put the food in our mouth. But water can also activate enzymes or chemicals that break down different components of our food through the digestive tract. So that not only is in our mouth, but also our stomach and our pancreas. Water is going to aid in digestion in our intestines because it's helping food move smoothly through the digestive tract, which prevents constipation. And something else to note too, while we're on the topic of constipation and water, fiber plays a big role here too. So if you have an increased amount of fiber, but your water intake doesn't increase with it, that can lead to constipation. So water plus fiber is the perfect way to help with smooth digestion. And then through all of this, it's important that we maintain our mucosal lining throughout our GI tract too. You can imagine all the wear and tear that our intestines get because we eat at least 3 times a day plus 2 snacks. So keeping the lining of our mucosal layer in there is very important and essential, and water provides a primary function for that mucus there. So water's role in metabolism. So once our food is digested, this is phase two. It's going to enter the bloodstream where these nutrients are transported by the blood all around to where we need it. So our bodies can take the nutrients and send them to where we need those nutrients to go. The nutrients enter our cells and they are metabolized or broken down to energy, which is called ATP. If there's any nutrition nerds, ATP is part of the Krebs cycle. And I will say during my education, the Krebs cycle haunts me. It still haunts me. So mentioning ATP here is huge. So, water is a critical component for this process. Without it, say if we're dehydrated, our cells are going to be a lot less efficient at creating ATP or providing our energy, our body energy. And the reason I'm mentioning ATP is because we often think of metabolism being slow or fast. Slow is when we presume that it makes it harder to lose weight, and a fast metabolism would presume that it makes weight loss easier. So it all kind of goes back to the ATP and the amount of energy that our bodies can get from that to be able to have a metabolism that works either slow or fast. So it all kind of goes back to hydration too. So, in the context of just feeling better or feeling good, all different things, hydration is very important. So, I am curious when you think of hydration and what that means, can you put in the chat kind of like when you think of hydration, what pops in your head? Just out of curiosity. And while those are coming through, we'll go on to detoxification and then see what some of those are. So, phase three, detoxification. So, now we've eaten the food, we started to break it down, it's gone through digestion, now detoxification. And this detoxification isn't anything special. It's no products that you have to buy or anything like that. It is our body's natural detoxification phase, which everyone has. So in this phase, our body is breaking up and breaking down those used nutrients from our food, but there's still a couple things left over, and that can be waste, toxins, extra water that isn't needed for balance, and these all get cleaned up and removed by our kidneys. So our kidneys facilitate this biggest process. Our liver also has a role in detoxifying our bodies, and when the kidneys are filtering out toxins and waste, they're diluting it and they're removing it as urine. So, water also helps our liver metabolize those toxins and it forms bile, which then helps break down those toxins. And that can also be removed through urine and sometimes stool. Another way that we can detoxify is through our skin. So, our skin is our largest organ and it removes toxins by either sweating, and it also helps us regulate our temperature, which is really cool. So, as you can see from this process, taking a bite of food to digesting it, getting all the nutrients out of it, removing the waste, this entire process of uh, start to finish essentially is reliant on really good hydration. So, we'll take a drink here because there's a water cup on the side. Okay. So, other vital processes. So, besides the main three points that we've made, there are other elements in our bodies that rely on water. So the first one is circulation. So in order to keep our blood flowing and to deliver nutrients to deliver nutrients like oxygen to our cells, we need really good circulation. And our blood is primarily also made up of water. A large component of blood is water. So getting that flowing relies on good hydration. Another one is cushioning joints and tissues. So water helps lubricate our joints, making them move smoothly, and it cushions vital organs like our brain and our spinal cord, which are also primarily made up of water. Water can also help with temperature regulation. This is through sweating and breathing. Both of those require water. And then maintaining cell function. So, a major component of our cells is water. So, to keep everything running, because we're made up of hundreds and hundreds, if not millions and millions of cells, water is a huge part of what cells are made up of. And then we mentioned balance a little bit with the athletics, but balance is a big part of this too, especially with electrolyte balance and then pressure balance across our membranes in our cells. So those are the main key places where water is most important in our body besides just hydration. So all of hydration has impacts on all of these processes that we do every day, whether we think about it. Usually we don't have to think about breathing, but when we're doing activity or we're sweating, those are things that we notice a little bit easier than how much we breathe every day. So water has an impact from breathing to sweating to everything in between. So the most popular question, how much water do I need? How much water is recommended? I have no idea. How do we figure that out? So now we've discussed the role of water. Let's explore what our needs are. So for water needs, the individual needs are going to vary on factors like age, gender, activity level, and environmental concerns. So there are general recommendations, but that's kind of where you start. And if you have any other factors, that's where the number can fluctuate or change. So for adult males, general recommendation is about 15 and a half cups of total water intake or around 124 fluid ounces. And then for adult females, the general recommendation is about 11 and a half cups or 92 fluid ounces. I do want to mention too that water doesn't only come from water, which we're drinking, but water can come from foods. So if you think mostly fruits and vegetables, watermelon comes to mind because it's in the name watermelon, is a large amount of water that you get from eating um, fruits and vegetables. Or cantaloupe is another one that is very high in water. So you can get around 20%, or that's what's typical, 20% of daily water intake comes from foods. So that's another reason why it's important to increase the amount of fruits and veggies because it also helps with hydration. So this slide has a water cup, so let's all take a drink. Okay. So for different stages of life, there are different fluid recommendations. So I wanted to put those in here too. So for pregnancy and breastfeeding, women have additional requirements for water. Pregnant women have additional needs because of amniotic fluid. Um, After birth, if they're breastfeeding, that also is another high demand for needing more hydration. So for pregnant women, it's recommended to have 12 and a half cups of water or 100 fluid ounces. And then for lactation, you need a little bit more, which is 16 cups or 128 fluid ounces. And then for kids too, their needs are different than adults. So for children 4 to 8, they need around 7 cups of water per day. And then for boys 9 to 13, they need 10 cups, and girls in that same age, 9 to 13, need 9 cups. So those are some of the differences between life stages. And I see the chat is working now. So looking at these slides, I'll go back one. How much water do you need? Do you feel like you hit this amount for men, adult men, 15 and a half cups, or for women, 11 and a half cups per day, which men is 124 fluid ounces, and then women, 92 fluid ounces? No. Okay. No worries at all. We're going to go into some of these next slides on how to increase your water intake. Not this next slide, but like towards the end. I'm keeping the good stuff for the end. So let's talk how much water is too much. So that is another super popular question, something I mentioned at the beginning, because we don't want to overhydrate with the water that we are drinking today throughout this presentation. So how much water can be too much? Because we're all different, there's really no definitive amount that is considered too much, but what we do know to be true is that the kidneys can excrete around 3 to 4 cups of water per hour. That's their max. So there are increased risks for overhydration with increased hourly intakes. And those hourly intakes are more than 4 cups per hour for healthy adults on a regular basis. So if you do that every once in a while, there's usually not a big concern there, but on a regular basis, that could lead to overhydration. And then when we start going into like 13 to 17 cups per day in a few hours, we know from the research that that shows to have side effects like nausea, headaches, confusion, and things that you can really see. And every time I think of overhydration, I think of that one water chugging competition. It was like a hot dog eating competition. It was like years and years ago, but they were just like chugging gallons of water, and whoever could drink the most water would win some award. And people got very sick from that because that is overhydration. So that's a great way to remember that too. So we do need to take caution with special groups, especially like endurance athletes, people who have kidney disease, especially on dialysis. Those are groups where water needs are going to look a lot different than what the general recommendations are. Okay, so how do we monitor hydration to know if we are hydrated enough? Before we move on, there's a water cup. So you know what that means? Taking a drink of water. Okay. So, monitoring hydration. So, how do you know if you're hydrated? How do you know if you're reaching to the overhydrated level? What does that look like? So, there are a couple different ways to monitor hydration. And this is important for everyone, but particularly if you're active, this is going to be very important. And there's a specific formula that we'll talk about in a second that is something to consider. But for the general population, the way to assess hydration status, and my favorite way is just by using your urine to indicate what your hydration level is. So the darker the color, the more dehydrated. That's going into dehydration here. So you don't want to be down here at 8. You want to stick around 1 and 2. So you're looking for a more pale lemonade color is what I like to describe it as. You're looking for a more lemonade color. If you're reaching down here, this could mean that you're needing a little bit of water. So maybe having a cup or two of water to help get it to be more pale looking. But the goal kind of is always pale urine. So that's the first way. It's very non-invasive, very easy. So that's something that I like to use. I will share. I did a hydration. I did a hydration presentation when I was in college, becoming a dietitian, and I had to talk to the men's tennis team. And I said, "Okay, we're going to take a break, and everyone go to the bathroom and come back and report what color your urine was." I was totally kidding, but you should have seen the look on their face. They were probably mortified, but it was very funny. I won't have you do that, but you can do that in your own time. And I did not have them do it either, to clarify. It was just a joke. So the second way to use and the second way to indicate what your water status or your hydration status is can be changes in body weight. So if you have a 1% body weight loss, usually that is associated with a little bit over 32 ounces of fluid deficit. And then another way is osmolality, which is a clinical measure to measure the urine concentration. You'll see that if you ever, when you go to the doctor, if they check your urine, that's usually on there. And the normal is between 500 and 85 is what you want to see on there. That usually is done in a clinic. I don't know if you can do that at home or get a test there. So very good. And let's go on to the next one. Okay, so monitoring hydration part 2. So another way to know if you're uh, hydrated or if you're getting close to dehydration is the feeling of thirst. So if you feel thirsty or excessively thirsty, it may be a good indicator that you're leaning towards dehydration and you might want to drink some water. And a common thing I hear is if you're thirsty, you're already dehydrated, which is kind of true. You're not super dehydrated, but you're on your way to becoming dehydrated. So that's just a good indicator that you should drink some water. And then if you are an athlete, this is the formula. Combine all of those things. So thirst, urine color, body weight changes are all going to be indicators for what your proper hydration is. So let's all take a drink. So there's a water cup here too. Okay. So signs of dehydration. So I don't think I mentioned at the beginning, but I'm located in Phoenix, Arizona. So this is the desert, and these signs of dehydration have been ingrained in my brain by the city of Phoenix. And today I have the honor of passing these ingrained pieces of information on to you. So, with the signs of dehydration, there is mild, moderate, and then there's severe. So, first we'll cover mild to moderate. So, that's going to be thirst. So, mildly dehydrated. If you have a dry or sticky mouth, that's also going to be an indicator that would be not related to medications. Some medications do cause dry or sticky mouth. That wouldn't necessarily mean you're dehydrated. It could be a medication side effect, but non-medicine related, it could be a sign of dehydration. The decreased amount of urine that you're putting out or the dark yellow color also indicates a mild to moderate dehydration. Dry skin. And what I like to do is take your hand and then pull it up like this, and it should spring back pretty fast. If it doesn't spring back really fast, then that can also mean that you're dehydrated because the water in our skin is what gives it some of the elasticity. Collagen does as well, but it's just a good quick test just to see like how dehydrated how dehydrated am I? So that's another um, fun interactive way to be able to tell. Dry skin, headaches, fatigue, dizziness, lightheadedness, muscle cramps are all mild to moderate signs of dehydration too. And if you're doing activity and it's away from a home base, so say you're going on a hike or a walk or something like that, once you reach half, once you drink half of your water and you still have a destination to get to, you should turn around and go back because the likelihood of you running out of water increases significantly. So you should always have enough water. You should have the same amount of water, if not more, to get back than you did getting to your destination. So that's another cool little trick. So if you're doing activity, if you run out of half your water and you're far away from your car or you're on a hike, turn back so that you can make it and not have any type of severe dehydration, which we'll cover now. So, severe dehydration, this is little to no urine, extreme thirst, sunken eyes, shriveled or dry skin that lacks elasticity. So, that's going to be like it stands up by itself quite a bit. You can do a mild if it's slow, you can, your skin, so you can play with that to see like what does your normal or baseline look like, then be able to adjust to know what dehydration level you might be reaching. A rapid heartbeat or breathing is another side effect or symptom of severe dehydration, fever, confusion, and then unconsciousness. So that would be, these are very serious signs of dehydration. And there are specific populations who are most at risk for dehydration, which includes infants or young children, and then older adults. So, for the young children and infants, things to look for: no tears when they're crying, their dry mouth, they have a dry mouth or dry tongue, they have a sunken soft spot, they're irritable or lethargic more than usual. And then this this population, infants, is kind of hard because they can't talk and they can't communicate that they're thirsty or they can't tell you that they would like some water. So that makes it a challenge. And they also have higher fluid intake needs too. So that also, they have more water, so they need more water, so they could become dehydrated. So oh, and I should mention too with infants too, if they have any like health conditions like diarrhea, that puts them at higher risk too. Same for adults. If you have diarrhea or vomiting or losing body fluids, then that also can increase the amount of water that you need to replenish that, and probably electrolytes too. So for people who are over 65 years old, they have less water than younger adults, and they're more susceptible to dehydration and need to make sure that they're getting adequate amounts of water to reduce those risks. So another factor that can influence this in older adults too is decreased kidney function, which can affect fluid levels and reduce thirst sensation in older adults, which can prevent them drinking water when they already have a low water supply to start with. So those are some key groups of people to be specifically more careful with when talking about hydration. And I do want to mention that severe dehydration is a medical emergency. I didn't mention that before, but it is a medical emergency. So if you have severe dehydration or you're with someone and you're on a hike or whatever, and they're having these symptoms, it is something that you should seek immediate medical care for in those severe cases and can have some serious consequences too. So, tips for drinking more water. So, after all of that, what are some practical tips that we can use to make sure that we're getting more water every day? Tip one, or I guess these, I have eight tips for you. Woo! So, the moral of all of these tips is the key to making water more drinkable is so that it's convenient, it's enjoyable, and it needs to be something that you find practical too. So, this will look different for every single person. For some of my patients, putting water on your desk so that when you're at work, you can see it. Some people like using clear glasses because you can see how much water you've drank. So all different types of things can be strategies. So you might have to try a couple of these just to see what works or what sticks. So the first big tip that I like is having a reusable water bottle with you from all times, kind of like we're doing today. So you've got a cup or a reusable water bottle, using this, sometimes getting one that's a cool color or that you like, or this one has a really good straw on it. So I find that I drink more water because I like the straw on this, which is so mundane and weird, but the straw in this is better than any of my other bottles. Therefore, I drink more. So it's things like that that you can assess on yourself to see like what makes me drink more water and then kind of apply those. You can also set reminders on your phone or your computer, on your calendar to drink water every hour. Or another cool feature I like to do is if you have a smartwatch, when it says stand up and gives you those stand up reminders, just couple that with drinking more water. So it will say, oh, you need to stand up this hour. You can say, oh, I need to stand up and I need to drink water. So you kind of put a habit that you've already created by standing up when it goes off to adding water to it. Now you're doing more movement and drinking more water. Another really fun one is infusing the water. So if you're not liking the taste of water, it's boring, infusing it with fresh fruit like lemon, lime, strawberry, cucumber, strawberry mint. You can get really creative with all the different kinds of flavors. Whatever you like works. They have some bottles that have an infuser in it, but I find even just putting it in the fridge so that it's cold and infuses overnight works really well. And then for those who are looking to manage weight or decrease the intake of simple sugars, replacing sugar sweetened beverages like soft drinks or juice with water helps eliminate empty calories coming specifically from liquid, or even just adding a splash of 100% juice to water to give it a little bit of flavor can be okay. I put the foods in here too. I love the foods. I am a registered dietitian, so I would be remiss to not mention foods more than once in this presentation. So, foods with high water content, you've got watermelon, cucumber, tomatoes, leafy greens that can all contribute to your hydration. And then a really fun one related to the fruits and the fruits and infusing it is you can use a frozen fruit in your water to act as ice cubes, which will give it extra flavor. It also looks really fun. And you can get, if you have an ice cube mold, putting fruit in the bottom of it and then making ice. It looks so fancy, but it's just frozen fruit in an ice cube. But it makes it more fun to drink water. You could also use berries and citrus. If you also don't like the taste of water, you can go to sparkling water, mineral water. That does count for your daily water intake. And lastly, a good practice is drinking water first thing when you wake up and before you go to bed. This bookends your day with hydration. So, kind of working it into where it works for you. So, if you find that you want to replace a habit such as scrolling on your phone before bed or when you wake up, you can replace that with a healthier habit such as drinking a glass of water or getting a lemon water or whatever fits for you. But kind of just thinking of those habits that maybe you're like, that might need some work, and then putting something like drinking water or whatever habits you'd like to improve. I see some really good suggestions in the chat coming through as they're popping up. Does anyone have any other things that I didn't mention on here that they like to do to increase their water consumption, or what are some things that you find to be super beneficial in helping you reach your water goals? I just saw a question pop up about herbal tea, so I'll answer that really quick. Yes, tea does count unless it has caffeine, but herbal tea before bed wouldn't have caffeine. Tea with caffeine or coffee doesn't it counts, but it is a diuretic, so it's going to increase urine output. So it kind of negates the hydration part if you're outputting more water as well. Okay. Ooh, daily challenges. That's fun. Yeah, that could be one. For daily challenges, even having an accountability buddy or someone that you drink water with. Or I know on Apple Watch, I think you can do like those challenges, even doing like a water challenge with your friends or your family to see can everyone reach their water goals for today. And if you do, you don't have to do your one chore that you don't like and someone else will have to do it. Or, you can make it really fun and kind of gamify it so that you're able to reach those goals. Perfect. So, if you have found that this resonates or you have extra questions that are more personalized questions, or you're looking for personal guidance on fitting more water in, as well as how to best eat to meet your unique goals, meeting with a registered dietitian or a nutrition expert is a great next step. And we have a ton of those at FoodSmart. So if you are working with FoodSmart or you got this through a text or an email, definitely check that out. So I know we have a little time here and I want to open it up for questions. I know there is typically a lot of questions on hydration, so I did want to give us quite a lot of a lot of time to take some of these questions through the chat.
Awesome. I will read these out as we go. Thank you, everyone who submitted questions so far. Um, let's start with the first one from Salvatore. Why is biologically processed water, like watermelon, so much more refreshing than tap water?
Yes. I'm guessing the fruit, not like infused water. The fruit. So there's more than just hydration in the watermelon. It also has naturally occurring sugar, and that's not bad or anything, but it tastes good. So it has what we're looking for. It's sweet and it is watery and it's refreshing and delicious. Same with like cucumber. So it just goes to the way that the watermelon is chemically made up, I guess, with the natural sugars that are occurring in there makes it taste really good. And it also tastes really good frozen too.
So that was a related question. So in your daily intake, does raw fruit or fruit juice count?
Fruit will count. It will make up about 20%. Fruit and vegetables, food will make up about 20% of your daily water intake. But fruit juices would be a separate category, not related to hydration. So those wouldn't count because typically they are higher in sugar and sometimes they have added sugar and they're not a pure water form. So they do have a little bit of water in them by nature, but the other things in them typically would knock them out of the hydration category.
Got it. And let's go back to basics really quickly. Just how do you best calculate your daily water intake before we go into all of the exceptions and what counts?
Yeah, that's a good question. I typically start with the recommendation that the USDA provides, but I will caveat and say if you're looking for a very specific personal recommendation working with a dietitian, it's the best way to find it. But for like general speaking, healthy adults, I typically start with either that recommendation and then taking your ideal weight and dividing it by two and aiming for that in ounces. And it's usually pretty close to what the general recommendations are. And that was 92 ounces for women and then 124 ounces for men who are adults. So that's where I would start is taking your weight, dividing it by two, and then it kind of gives you a range.
Great. And then does sparkling water count?
Yes. Yes. If it didn't, I would be so sad. Sparkling water is so good. But yeah, it is just water that has been carbonated. So if you have a soda stream or if you get it by the can, it is just water. If it has added sugar to it, sometimes they put added sugar to make it sweet. That's something to look for because you don't want added sugar. You want to keep that as low as possible. But if it's just sparkling water with no added sugar, um, then that's perfectly fine and counts.
Okay. So related, and a couple of folks have asked this, but does alkaline water like better or worse? And does alkaline or spring or filtered water make a difference?
In overall hydration, not a significant difference. It mostly goes on preference. If some people think waters taste different brand to brand, I happen to be that person, but I know not everyone has that thought, but they do taste different to me, and to a lot of people. So if you have a specific preference on what it tastes like, then you could just go with the one you like. You don't have to get the alkaline water. There's no real significant difference with the literature that shows that that's better at hydrating you or um, better than just regular water or like filtered water that you would get from like a fridge or another type of bottle. So um, it's just personal preference.
Okay. We already need a few more clarifying questions, so I'll come back to these. But in an emergency situation with dehydration, Erin wants to know if liquid IV is something that you could use. Does that benefit? Is that a good solution to dehydration?
In an emergency situation, no. In emergency, you would need to seek medical attention. If it's not super severe, like if you're more mild to moderate in dehydration and you're exercising or you're out on a hike, a liquid IV can help because it has electrolytes, and electrolytes can increase the way that the water is absorbed in a sense. So it does help in an emergency. Contact the medical facility, the authorities, but in mild to moderate, it can help. Yes.
Okay, great. And then going back to some of the clarifying questions. So in reference to fruit juice, are you referencing fresh fruit juice? Like, how do you compare that to what's bought in a store?
Yeah, good question. So fruit juice, 100% fruit juice. So you have to read the labels in the store. It can be store bought in 100% fruit juice, but most of the time, if it's like orange juice, for example, and you get it from the store, it has added sugar in it. And the added sugar takes away a lot of the other benefits you're going to get because added sugar is associated with many chronic diseases that we see in the US. So that juice with added sugar would not count towards hydration. So that's what I'm referencing. 100% fruit juice is like almost fresh squeezed. So if you have an orange tree or you have a friend with an orange tree and you squeeze it, that is classified as a fruit serving. If you're getting it from the store and it has a lot of added sugar, that is more what I would classify as like desserts with
Okay.
added sugar.
So if you have a smoothie with fresh fruit from your garden, for example, is that count towards hydration or is that a fruit serving or both?
It's both. It's both.
Great.
We've got a
And what
crossover.
about Crystal Light or any of the things that you can add into regular water?
Yeah, if it helps you drink more water, definitely is fine to add Crystal Light to it. One thing to look for, I'm not going to harp on this added sugar again because they hide it in everything. Manufacturers love it. Some packets do have added sugar, so you would want to get one that doesn't have added sugar. But if you find one like Crystal Light doesn't have added sugar, that's perfect for increasing your water consumption.
Okay. Here's kind of a fun one. Is it better to drink warm water in the morning or cold water? And then secondarily and relatedly, outside of that, is one more hydrating than the other, warm or cold?
Yeah, there's no big difference in the research. There's slight differences in metabolism. I think there were a handful of studies that showed warm water may help in the speed of metabolism or converting that ATP for hydration, but it's nothing significant to say only drink warm water. It's kind of just preliminary there. So either hot or cold or warm is perfectly fine at hydrating. It would go down to what you would prefer and whatever makes you drink the most water, I would go that route.
Okay. Can your skin start itching if you were dehydrated? And would electrolytes help with that?
Yeah, your skin may start itching. One of the side effects of dehydration is dry skin. So that could be contributed there, or it could be something unrelated. But a side effect of dehydration is dry skin, so that might lead to itching. Electrolytes may help, but just drinking more water could also be an easier, low cost way.
Okay, great. And does the time of day at which you drink relating to your meals make a difference? So, for instance, one of our attendees heard that drinking less water, or rather not chugging water during meals, is better for hydration and digestion.
Yes. So that has to go back to how our kidneys process it. So if you're overdoing, or if you're going over like 4 cups at a time, your kidneys can't process and filter that as well. So you're not going to get adequate hydration. So as long as you stay under 4 cups per session or per serving, then that would be totally fine. So it's the amount your kidneys can excrete that has an impact on your overall hydration.
Okay, great. And then Bernardo wants to know, as a Native American, we do sweat lodges that normally run for an hour with 4 breaks. What would you suggest water intake should be? I imagine there are similar situations with other high impact sports.
Yeah, so for that, I would use the method of your body weight. So if you weigh yourself prior to starting, see how much water you or see how much weight you lose, and then every 1% of body weight loss is 32 ounces. So that would be what you would need to replenish.
Okay, great. And then do you have any tips or cautions for drinking tap water?
If you live in a place where tap water is safe, then I say it's fine to drink tap water. It's accessible. It's something that uh, is typically clean depending on your area. But if you have it and it's accessible to you and it's safe to drink, then there's no problem in drinking tap water.
Okay. And then going back a little bit on your recommendations for the elderly, how would a participant help their elderly mother stay hydrated?
hmm Yeah, for that, I like to use things that are more fun. I'll use my grandpa as an example. He hated to drink water. He would only drink Pepsi. And I'm like, you cannot live on Pepsi because Pepsi is not hydrating, but he like would not drink water. So for that, it could just be like ice cubes. If he would like suck on an ice cube, that would also contribute to hydration levels. And that's something he would do instead of having like a Jolly Rancher. I'm like, okay, well, maybe let's try an ice cube here. And that's something that he was willing to swap out and get some hydration. Also, just increasing the amount of a high water containing fruits and vegetables can also help. Usually that's only about 20%, but still that's better than nothing there. Or if there's a drink that they really like, maybe even finding a way to make it more water forward. So
Mhm.
if it is like the Pepsi situation, my grandpa would not do this, but you could try it, is doing maybe a little bit of sparkling water with the Pepsi so it still has that flavor to it. And then at least you're getting a little bit of hydration, but it depends how stubborn they're feeling that day.
Great. Um, okay, and then going back to the slide where you were showing us how to gauge your hydration based on urine, what are
Yeah.
foods that can change urine color or odor that maybe we should be aware of so we don't think we are under or overhydrated when we're not?
Yeah. So asparagus is going to change the smell. So don't be concerned on that. And then if you're taking medications or like vitamins can also change the color of your urine. So that will be something to keep in mind, especially if it's like a B vitamin mix. A lot of times that will lead your urine to be a brighter in yellow color. So it's like the four, but neon four. So that in that case, I would focus on other cues. So it would be good to track your water intake to get a sense of what might feel like is the right amount. Or once you get an idea of like, okay, when I have this amount of water, I know I'm really hydrated. So using other cues, tracking water, using your thirst, using your skin, kind of using those other tools to see what your hydration status is outside of just the urine color. And you can also use the body weight formula.
Great, thank you. And this is great, everyone. Keep them up. These are really good questions. And so we have a question that's a little bit more specific to a personal condition. But so we have a participant who produces an abnormally high number of red blood cells. And so he's wondering if it's possible that that overproduction of his red blood cells is related to water intake or underhydration.
That I am not sure of. So I can't answer that with certainty. So I'm sorry. But you can book with one of our dietitians.
And if you'd like to do so, I just dropped a link in the chat for that. So let's see. So we had a question from Bren. Is for weight loss, is it advisable to drink half of your body weight in water?
Yes. Yeah. When you are properly hydrated, it helps your metabolism work at its highest function, which then in turn helps you lose weight. So if you are dehydrated, you might notice that you aren't able to lose as much weight as if you were hydrated. It's not going to be like 20-pound difference in a period of time, but you can see that people who are at proper hydration status lose weight easier than people who are dehydrated.
Great. And then a couple of follow-up questions from Aaron. For liquid IV, given your notes around being careful to look for added sugar, assuming liquid IV also needs to be sugar-free for it to be beneficial.
I always recommend the sugar-free version. They do have a sugar-free version. If you are doing something like very active, the sugar will break down so fast that you'll use up the glucose quickly. So if you're on a really long hike, your body will use that glucose as quick fuel because it breaks down really fast because it's just a simple sugar. So there are some use cases where the sugar and the electrolyte packets can be beneficial, but if it's specifically for just consuming to make sure that you're getting enough electrolytes, then I would not add the extra sugar to it. But if you are doing intense activity, then it wouldn't be as big of a concern.
Okay. And then what about adding ice to beverages like soda? Does that make a difference?
Yes, it does make a difference because you're going to drink that water. And I think that's a great first step too. So if you are drinking a lot of soda or you're looking to cut back on your soda consumption, adding ice to a cup and then only filling it till it's full reduces the ounces because it's not going to all fit because the ice is taking up space. And it's also going to increase the amount of water that you're getting from the solid form of water, which is ice. So I think that's a good first step if you are looking to increase hydration and cutting back on those beverages. If weight loss is your goal and you have a lot of soft drinks, opting for the sugar-free version or diet can also help with that goal too.
Great. And then you mentioned, herbal tea without caffeine can count towards your water intake goals. What about a product called Water Joe that has caffeine for those of us who might work night shifts and need caffeine in our lives?
Yeah, so you can still have caffeine, but caffeine and alcohol, I'm just throwing those in there together because those are the two drinks that can dehydrate you, especially consumed in large amounts. So the reason that caffeine isn't advisable all the time is because it's a diuretic, so it's going to increase your urine output. So you can have caffeine, but I wouldn't have only the caffeinated beverages. You would want to have non-caffeinated hydration sources in there as well.
Okay, great. And did you say anything about the percentage of water in a daily veggie intake, similar to how you referenced for fruit?
Fruits and veggies in all food will be 20%
Collectively or 20% each?
collectively. Yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
And then Kara wants to know if there's a water app you recommend. I don't know if that means for tracking or anything, but
Not specifically. I know that there are a lot, but I don't have one that I like to use. I think just water reminder, or I think it's drink water. Anything like that will work. There is a water bottle that connects to an app, so it can tell where you're at in drinking, and will send you push notifications based on your goal. So that's like super high tech, but really cool. I don't have one of those, but that's another way you could track. And you could also use like MyFitnessPal or Chronometer to track your water intake. But sometimes I just put it on a piece of paper. I draw like little water cups for how many 32 ounces I want to drink. And then I color them in once I finish my bottle. So it's kind of whatever works for you.
awesome. Okay. I think we have gone through all of the questions. One that came up a little bit was whether or not we will share the recording of this. And the answer is yes, we will send that out to you. If anyone is interested in meeting with someone on our team as wonderful as Ryan for any specific RD advice, I've also just dropped the link to that in the chat for you to grab it there. We have about 5 minutes left, so Ryan and I can hang out for a little bit if there are additional questions. And if not, Ryan, any closing comments?
Closing comments. Ooh, my favorite. I hope that you had a great time. I hope that you enjoyed drinking water and just think throughout the day to drink water today and every day for the rest of forever. And I hope you schedule one with our dietitian. Oh, I did see a question just pop through. What is Liquid IV? I can answer that for you if you're still here. Liquid IV is a hydration packet, and you can get it at the store. It comes in like a little individual thing like this, and it's mostly sodium and potassium and some flavor, and that is what a lot of athletes use or ways to replenish the electrolytes in your body. We lose electrolytes through sweating, through like talking, breathing, because we lose fluids that way. And it's just a packet that you can add instead of having like a kiwi or a banana, which also has like potassium in it. Cool.
Yes, Michael, feel free to share this with your friends. Ryan, is it true that milk is the most hydrating drink? Someone said they saw that on the news.
Oh, um, that is not true. Water is more hydrating than milk. And yeah, just water, not milk. Milk does have hydration. It is something that can be added to your daily hydration amount, but water will be more hydrating than milk.
Right. All right. Thank you, everyone.